Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers in Grassroots. It's actually number 5 of the fabulous Furry Freak Brothers comic book. This came out in 1977, and it's basically the Freak Brothers get back to nature. Around this time, the hippie revolution was pretty much actually long dead. The few remaining hippies, they realized they couldn't change the world, so they kind of retreated into communes and little farms and just decided to live their own little hippie lifestyle, not be hassled by everyone else. But their grand utopian dream for the rest of the world, they realized, nobody wants to go along with this. A lot of the hippies themselves, they didn't want to go along with it and became norms, got less freaky. But not the Freak Brothers. They're in it for the long haul. Inside front cover, the 1976 ripoff calendar of world records in dope smuggling. These are pretty fun. Just all these made-up stories about people smuggling massive quantities of drugs across borders. And they get more and more ludicrous as the comic goes on. I love this one. Giant turtles tow waterproof containers 6,000 miles in an instinctive return to their nesting beach. So I guess these drug dealers tied these bags of dope to these turtles. And, they always return to the same nesting beach, these turtles. So I guess they just wait for them to arrive and then pick up their drugs. These are pretty good. Once again, this issue is all Gilbert Shelton and David Sheridan helping out in the art. And I don't know if helping out's the proper term. I mean, turning Gilbert Shelton's already amazing cartooning into really, really nice stuff. Dave Sheridan was a really damn good artist. First story we have here is Fat Freddy's cat in Animal Camp. And this is like a great action movie. It's kind of like Chicken Run, that movie, the animated movie. But, well, I guess it's like Stalag 17. So these are, if you notice, they're all like kind of half-page things. I think these were syndicated strips that told a continuing story, and they reprinted it here. Fat Freddy's cat is hanging out with his kids, and he tells them a story about how the time the Freak Brothers went on vacation and didn't want to take the cat, so they put him up in this place that advertises itself as a pet resort. It's supposed to be a very upscale place to leave your pets. As soon as they drive away, Freddy, the cat, realizes that's not the case. This place, in fact, is like hell on earth. They actually kill a lot of the animals, sell them to pet food companies, and sell their furs to make coats and stuff, their pelts. Which I don't get the business model there. Like, what happens when the people return for their pet? You just say, oh, they're not here, sorry. But it doesn't matter. It's still a very scary place to be left. And it is like very Stalag 17. So they're going to kill Fat Freddy's cat, and he kind of freaks out and does this crazy dance. And it impresses them. He says, oh, the warden's going to like this cat. He's a special cat. He can dance. We see all this other cruelty. This rich lady leaves her cockatoo. And, of course, that night they're eating chicken, it looks like. But it's the cockatoo. The warden has, like, a big game hunter. Has all these busts, or what do you call those? I can't think of the word right now. The heads of animals, but they're all like pets, like a rabbit, cat, parakeet. One of the guys there is like a Dr. Frankenstein who's been splicing animals together, and he's going to do that to Fat Freddy's cat. He's going to put rabbit ears on him and a giant a horse tail. So Fat Freddy's cat's not going to have anything to do with that. He comes out of the cage and starts ravaging the guy with his claws. So there's trouble in the dog section of the pet resort, and they throw Fat Freddy's cat in, and he puffs up his tail crazily. I didn't know he could do that. And basically, the alpha dog has a heart attack. It scares him so much. So they declare him the king of the dogs. So now he's in charge of all the dogs. So he plans this escape. And I guess this is really where it really gets like Stalag 17. They're building this tunnel, and Fat Freddy's cat is ordering everyone around, all the other animals. And he's like, hey, see that fan up there? We need that for ventilation. Go set it up, like you guys grab it and bring it down here. And but really all it is Fat Freddy's cat, I guess, tricks it out. So it's like a helicopter. When it starts spinning, it whirs him out of the prison. Whirs. I don't think that's a word. Sorry. But look at this, just beautiful art. Such great cartooning. I like this dog here. And the image of Fat Freddy's cat fluffing his tail is great. It would give me a heart attack if I saw that. We have a couple of one-pagers. This one, Fat Freddy goes back to grade school. Fat Freddy's reading in the newspaper how they're giving Ritalin to hyperactive kids. I didn't know that was a thing back in the 70s. I'd never heard of that until, the late 90s. The whole Ritalin thing. But I guess they've been doing it for a while. So he shaves and tries to look as young as he can, and he enters the 6th grade. Hopes just so he can get some Ritalin. But they're like, oh, well, we're going to have to bus you to the next school. This is the era of busing. That social experiment where they would bus white kids to black schools and vice versa. Kind of like forced integration. So he gets to the school and he acts like a big spaz. And the school nurse is all like, oh, this is a poor school. We don't got Ritalin. We just got these giant horse tranquilizers for the hyperactive kids. So Freddy comes home. He's a little bummed about that, but he's all smiles when he gets home. And this is like, oh my God. Just, this strip could never happen today. I can't even imagine. Freddy says, hi, fellas. Meet my new lady friend from over at school. Pretty foxy for a 6th grader, isn't she? It's like, oh my God. Different times, I guess. The Fat Freddy's cat comics are still running on the bottom. Here's one where he's fighting the roaches again. Well, he's not, but we just see the roaches. Here we have Freewheelin' Franklin and the Mellow Cab Man. And I guess Franklin's a cabbie now. That's another thing about this, end of the 60s, it's full on into the 70s now. The early strips back in 67, 68, nobody seemed to ever have to work. Everyone seemed to survive on food stamps and welfare and just got to sit around all day thinking about ways to score a pot. And it seems like reality has set in. The 70s are kind of grimier and harsh realities are coming to the fore. So they have to work and stuff. It's kind of interesting seeing he's progressing with the times, Gilbert Shelton, Kind of a social document of that era. This one's called Violence on the Bus. I guess this was a thing maybe in San Francisco where incredible acts of violence were occurring on the bus lines. All these, and Freddy was on this bus and it just turns into this murderous riot. People with guns shooting each other, stabbing each other. It's crazy. Here's the story of Phineas and the organic mechanic. He's got to get the Freakmobile fixed up. He sees all these, big gas stations / garages, and they're all, he says they're monopolistic warmongering cartels. He doesn't want to give them his money. So he finds a little garage called Conscientious Car Service, and it's totally run by this total hippie. I mean, this guy looks like Moon Boy from Devil Dinosaur. He out hippies the Freak Brothers. He looks like some caveman or something. And he's super, radical. So he fixes the car. It seems like it's working. And it's really cheap, too. Franklin's driving the Freakmobile around. And he says, hey, how come it smells like a Mexican restaurant all of a sudden? And the car kind of craps out. And when he looks under the carriage of the car, he says, avocados, beans, and bananas? I don't even get this comic. So for some reason, the hippie mechanic put all that shit in the car. I don't know. Very strange. So here's a new thing. This is a syndicated strip. I guess Gilbert Shelton was trying to diversify his brand, have another, hit. And he made this comic called Nerds. And I'm not a big fan of Nerds. I've read some of these in rip-off comics. I think I've seen these before there. And they're not that funny. A lot of the gags are based on just a bad pun or something, I don't know. Here's a nice half-pager. It's do-it-yourself home projects and helpful hints from the Freak Brothers. A weather station using all like kazoos and whistles to tell you the speed of the wind. It actually seems like it might work in a weird way. Like he puts in all this detail, ball bearings, and like exactly how it would work. Here we have a marijuana plant disguise. And this seems pretty smart. You get these fake cherry tomatoes and hanging from the tree so it looks like a cherry tomato plant. So now we start our epic. Grassroots. Once again, the Freak Brothers get evicted. And they get this sweet deal. This, I guess, rich old lady is going to let them stay at her mansion, this beautiful mansion. They don't have to pay rent. She just wants someone there to look after things. They're going to be like caretakers, basically. They're kind of wondering, like, oh my God, how could such a sweet deal be real? And Phineas finds out from this local kid that because there was a coke dealer lived there and was murdered. So people think it's like haunted. That's why it goes for so cheap. Well, it goes for nothing. God, man, sorry. Just the art. Dave Sheridan's background art. And it's just so nice. The shading. Especially when things get dark. It's really good. So then the guys who killed the coke dealer show up. I guess they think that maybe the Freak Brothers know where the coke is that they were looking for. They never found the coke. And they got him all tied up. And they're looking around the house. The chandelier falls and lands right on one of the drug dealers. And they realize that the chandelier is cocaine, is all cocaine. It's like somehow compressed to look like glass. So they grab the chandelier and escape. Some hijinks ensue. They sell most of the cocaine and they're rich. So the first thing they do is they buy this awesome truck and they buy a piece of land out in the country. And as they're heading out there, these three hippie chicks are hitchhiking. So everything's coming up Freak Brothers. They tell the girls, it's like, hey, we've got like a year's supply of cocaine and we got all this land. Do you want to come stay with us for a while? And they're like, sure. So everyone's wired on coke, as you can imagine. And they get there. Oh, actually, right when we get there, I love this. Gilbert Shelton does another song. He wrote lyrics. I don't know if he ever recorded this song. We're moving to the country where watermelons grow. We'll ride around on horses' backs down by the swimming hole. We'll have 6 John Deere tractors and 3 hound dogs named Blue. We'll have no need for furniture. Some soft haystacks will do. So they're just having this fantasy of their bucolic life. It's like Green Acres. And here's the title panel, Grassroots. So they're all wiring on coke, remember? And they're all fantasizing about all the awesome shit they're going to do. Like a windmill will go over there. We'll have solar panels. We'll have a propane generator over here. A wine press. Here's where we'll grow our crops. And it's almost like in their heads, they're doing it. But they're just so high on coke. They're basically fantasizing everything. And then at the end of this page, Freddy realizes that they're all out of coke. They did a year's supply of coke in like a week or two. So pretty soon they all start coming down from their trip. And their beautiful paradise, rural paradise, they realize it was all in their heads. There's no windmill. The beautiful lazy river is a scary, like almost unswimmable river with like riptides and rapids. And then they fully come down and they realize they got swindled. It's like a shitty piece of land. The house sucks. They were just delusional for a week or two. We see how bad the river is. Phineas accidentally drops his inflatable life raft into it and it rips it up. It's called Shark River for a reason. There's giant mosquitoes everywhere. You know, this living in the country isn't all it's cracked up to be. The house is falling apart. People are falling through the floors. So since their farming isn't really working out, they have to go to this town. It's like a really long ride because they're in the middle of nowhere. It's really hard to get there. So they got to ride all the way to this little town and go to the general store and buy food. But for the most part, they try to live off fish from the river. They did figure out how to fish, and Freddy's getting sick of it. And he's tired of driving all the way into town for food. So he remembers that they still have the .357 Magnum they got from the drug dealers. And he goes out into the woods to go hunting and get some real meat. And he sees a moonshine still. And all of a sudden this guy sneaks up on him. And he's all like, he thinks he's a revenuer. And looks like he's fit aimed to blow his head off. But look at the guy. He looks just like Snuffy Smith. Like a weird version of Snuffy Smith from the comic strips. Back at the house, there's a revolution going on. The women are tired of being treated like, hippie chicks. And like the Freak Brothers basically expect them to do all the cooking and cleaning. Typical domestic roles for women, And they're like, no, we're going to have a democracy. I made up this constitution. And from now on, we're going to vote on everything. And they don't realize since Freddy's gone, though, the women outnumber the guys. And, of course, they vote as a block. And so they vote in all these things. Like, oh, you guys are going to have to do the dishes from now on. And, of course, they win every vote. Meanwhile, in the Fat Freddy strip in the bottom, he's getting, he's out there too. So he's getting into various shenanigans of the forest. He meets a very friendly, I think it's a bobcat or a lynx. Meanwhile, back with Freddy. You see this? All of a sudden, he doesn't look like Snuffy Smith anymore. I don't know if someone sent him a letter, some lawyers said, hey, cut it out over there. That's a copywritten character. So I guess Freddy convinces him he's not a revenuer. And the guy actually gives him some moonshine that's made from magic mushrooms. So Freddy is tripping balls. He gets back to the house, and the guys fill him in on the revolution. It's like, you got to vote with us now. They've been riding roughshod over us. And they trick Freddy the women trick Freddy into voting for them. They basically bribe him with food. So the guys are still stuck on shit detail. And the women don't have to do any chores. I find this kind of interesting. I don't know if these were the strips that were syndicated. That's why, lots of small panels. The words are very tiny because these were probably bigger. They were printed in a newspaper. But then these pages are just 6 panels, bigger words. So maybe these are linking pages he drew for the comic. So Phineas and Franklin are still steaming about this Constitution. And they figured next time Freddy will vote with them. So the women realize, okay, it's going to be a dead heat or deadlocked. So they basically say, hey, any of you guys who vote against our interests, you're going to be sleeping alone tonight. We're basically not going to have sex with you. And Freddy goes along with the women. He says, I'm voting with the girls. So when it's bedtime, Phineas and Franklin got no one to sleep with. Excuse me. And when they get upstairs, they see that Freddy's sleeping with all 3 of them now. So Phineas and Franklin are like, screw this shit, it's democracy. We're going to have a coup d'etat. They take all the food and run outside. They know that Freddy will follow him. Freddy's like, hey guys, wait for me. And they trip him and they tie up Freddy. Tie him to a tree. And Franklin says, we're going to be forced to use extreme measures to get you to change your views. So all of a sudden you hear the women in the house hear Freddy screaming out in pain. And he's begging them to stop. He's like, I'll vote for you guys, I promise. And the women are shocked and horrified. Freddy continues to shriek and howl. And finally they can't take it anymore. They say, Franklin, Phineas, they yell out to the forest. We give up. We can't stand to hear Freddy's pitiful shrieks. We'll do whatever you want. We'll vote any way you want. And then we see they're not even torturing Freddy. They're just eating in front of him and taunting him because he's tied up. He can't eat because he's such a glutton. It's like torture to him. Here we have another nerd strip. In this one we find out that you don't eat a nerd. These hunters kill this nerd and they roast him up. And they have this violent, fatal reaction to eating the nerds. I guess it's poison to humans. And this nerd says, schmooze we ain't. Because unlike schmooze are good eating, but nerds are not. Now back to our story. All their plans to like raise chickens and grow food pretty much fail. Oh yeah, Fat Freddy, it's a lynx. This amorous lynx who seems to have a crush on Fat Freddy's cat, I meant to say. Yeah, they know nothing about rural living, so Franklin goes to buy some cows and buy some goats, just thinks they're weird-looking cows, doesn't get it. The housing inspector comes by and basically says, guys, I'm condemning this house. It's unfit for habitation. And just to prove the point, he falls through the floor because there's termites as well. So they build this teepee because they can't live in the house. And it actually is a pretty good teepee. They're like, hey, it's pretty nice in here. But then these Indians show up and say, that's an original copyrighted Indian design. You owe us $100 in royalties. Some more scenes of them trying to live off the land. They're clueless. They don't got a fucking clue. If they didn't have all that money from the cocaine deal, they would have been dead by now. So one day in the river, they find a piece of gold. And word gets out. And within a few days, there's a gold rush on their little piece of land there. So apparently there was no more gold. It was just a mashed up old pocket watch made of gold. It's not like there's gold nuggets in the river. But of course, they don't tell anyone that. And they actually become rich from charging for parking. So many people are coming out there, they need a place to park, and they own all the land. This is interesting. For some reason, this panel, one of the women of the Freak Brothers commune is drawn just like little orphan Annie, except with big boobs. She's got, no pupils and that crazy ratty hair. And so this boomtown starts because of this gold rush. They call it Rush City. And it's this cobbled together town, trailers. And pretty soon, though, it becomes like an actual town. All these people trying to make it rich. This guy shows up, and they think he wants to buy the land. He's like, what do you think it's worth? So, of course, Phineas is driving up the price. He's like, I think it's worth $200,000. If you want the land, you're going to have to pay us that. He's like, well, actually, I'm the tax assessor. So thanks for giving me an accurate number of how much the land's worth. You owe us $37,000. So they're like, fuck, guys, we can't make that kind of money. Like, what happens if we can't pay it? And they're like, yeah, they're going to evict us. And they'll send the sheriff to kick us off our land. And Phineas gets a crazy idea in his head. He says, if I was sheriff, I wouldn't kick us off our land. I'm going to run for sheriff. So he kind of dresses up like some old cowboy. He looks pretty good, actually. His hair in a ponytail. And he goes into town and starts campaigning for sheriff. It's interesting. We find out that Phineas is actually like really good at martial arts. This big goon tries to beat him up, and he just grabs him in like a pinky hold until the guy says uncle. So people seem to be into Phineas. It seems like a lot of the voters are thinking about voting for him. So there's a Republican and there's a Democrat. And Phineas is up against both of them. So it looks like Phineas wins. So there's a big victory party. And they're making some jungle juice in this giant garbage pail. All the old timers, the country folk are there having a good time. And that moonshine guy shows up. And he brought his special moonshine with the mushrooms in it. And he pours that in the jungle juice. So pretty soon this party gets out of bounds because everyone starts drinking that mushroom stuff. I love this. All these like old, like kind of redneck people are just getting all turned into hippies. Start making out with each other. Start taking their clothes off. And I guess the party gets so wild and loud that it's enough to summon the long-dead spirit of Dionysius. And Dionysius appears on the stage with this crazy double saxophone. And look at all the naked townspeople. They're just tripping out of their brains. That looks like fun. So then the current sheriff shows up. And he basically says, I don't care if you won the vote. You're not going to be sheriff. We're not going to let some hippie be sheriff. And then there's a flash flood. And it washes everything away. Including Rush City, the whole city. So the Freak Brothers realize everything's gone. All their money that they buried on their land is gone. So they basically try to get back to San Francisco. And they find the freeway. And they're like, we're saved. So I guess they're going to hitchhike home. And on the way home, they pick up Fat Freddy's cat, who's been getting into various misadventures. In the epilogue, we find out that Rush City, they rebuilt it on the same spot. And I guess every year there's a flash flood that destroys the city, and they rebuild it every year. It's kind of nice. It's that page of the crazy party in color. But it's really just an ad for a poster. I guess you could buy this. I wouldn't mind having that on my wall. That's pretty nice. So there you have it, guys. 5th issue of the Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. The epic tale, Grassroots, is included. So I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, at least in my opinion, some really beautiful cartooning. You know, a lot of goofy gags, but also some really fun storytelling. You know, when Gilbert Shelton goes long, he goes strong. I think he really shines on the longer stories. He's a good yarn spinner. But there, I guess that's it for this episode. In about a week, I'll be putting up the next issue. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope to see you here next time at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.